So Rabbi Sai, we started Shin Samach Gimel Vav, and we did the tour through Vav, and we will pick it up. But right now we want to go back and do the Beis Yosef. So we want to pick up the Beis Yosef Shin Samach Gimel, and we're going to pick up the Beis Yosef in Vav. We'll just read Vav one more time quickly. And we're not going to do all the Beis Yosef because part of it he just quotes the Gemara. And so we'll just pick up the parts that are Chidushim. But let's just remind ourselves what Vav said and get back into the Sugya. So Shin Samach Gimel, Siv Vav in the tour Choshen Mishpat. And it's Vav, whatever edition you have, it's the letter Vav is where you are. Okay, and again, this is our Sugya. Hadar b'chatzer chaver shalomi daito. Pirush. Shero'ehu darbo velo omar lo klum. So lo midaito doesn't mean he didn't know about it. It could also mean that he didn't protest. She'im omar lo tzei velo yatsa vavai chayav litein lo kol scharo ela lo omar lo davar v'zed darbo. So the tour is talking. Let's see so basically. And obviously we're talking here, if it says Eino Tzarech La'alot Lo Schar, it means that it's a Lo Kaima La'agra. Okay? And it says that even if he sees it and doesn't protest, then he doesn't have to pay schar. The only time he'll have to pay schar, and this is a chiddush, and again, we're going to get into it when we get into the Shulchan Aruch, but it's very clear that if Ruvain owns the house, and it's a lo kaima la'agra, and Shimon moves in. And Reuven says, I don't let you in, get out. What happened to Kofin al Midas Dom? It's very clear that if Reuven tells Shimon to get out and Shimon stays, he has to pay rent. Okay? And we're not going to apply Kofin al Midas Dom. We'll see in the Shulchan Aruch more than here why not. Instinctively, you guys all think, hey, you can't make Shimon let Shimon let Reuven live there if Shimon doesn't want to. But it's a lo kaima la'agra, meaning he's a lo chaser, and Reuven is a nene. So why can't Reuven, who's a nene, insist that Shimon, who's a lo chaser, let him do it? We're going to see a few examples of this. Okay, so let's see the Beis Yosef. So the Beis Yosef we're going to pick up is not the very beginning of Vav, because in the very beginning of Vav, all he does is he quotes the Gemaras. But we want to pick it up. Also, he's quoting the Gemara, but this already is where it branches off into Halacha Lamaisa with Machlokas Rishonim. The Beis Yosef says, he starts quoting Amar Rav Schora, Amar Rav Huna, Hadar b'chatzer chaveiro lo shalomi daito, Eino tzarech la'alot lo schar. It's a number of lines into the Vav of the Beis Yosef. If you have the new version, it's the second wide line.
What page in the new version?
Kuf Ayin Dalet. Kuf Ayin Dalet, it's the second line below the text of the tour. Amar Rav Schora, Amar Rav Huna, Hadar b'chatzer chaver shalomi daito, ein tzarech la'alot lo schar. He's quoting the Gemara. Okay? And that seems to be the halacha. Vehevi harif. Hadar Rav Schora as a halacha, meaning the Rif paskins that Hadar b'chatzer chaver shalomi daito ein tzarech la'alot lo schar. V'kosav alei v'dafke b'chatzer de lo kaima la'agra. Because you'll notice that Rav Schora did not make any contingencies. Rav Schora said, Amar Rav Schora, Amar Rav Huna, Hadar b'chatzer chaver shalomi daito ein tzarech la'alot lo schar. So of course the Rif, based on the Gemara, says that of course has to be Chatzer de lo kaima la'agra. The afal gafti ahu gavra de ovid lemegar. That is a zen nene v'zel lo chaser. Mikol makom zen nene v'zel lo chaser. Aval, what about a Chatzer de kaima la'agra? Tzarech la'alot lo schar afal gav de lo ovid lemegar. Here we've got that one unstated case where it's left up in the air. What happens when the guy is a lo nene, but the house is a kaima la'agra? The ha chasre mamona. All right, so the Rif paskind, the Rif paskind against Tosfos, that if he is a lo lo Ovid lemegar, meaning the guy's a lo nene, but the house was an Ovid. Ovid, it was a rentable house. So even though there's a lo nene, the other guy is a chaser. The chasrei mamona, the pasuk haramba, right, which we saw. The kos of harava magid hadar b'chatzer chavero, who could divrei ha'alachos. That's okay. That's how everybody's paskening. Divrei ha'alachos is the rif. Aval das hatosfos shehu patur. You remember we saw that Tosfos. That was really the first place where the idea was mentioned. What happens if he's a zel lo nene and zeh chaser? How can he be patur? Because it's grama. At the end of the day, it's grama. Mikol makom kosvu hameforshim she'im chaser habayit b'chol shehu kegon shahaya chadash v'hishchir aksolim v'chosro me'erko afal pi shahaya chaser she'ena asuya lischar kiven shehu mechaser ktsas magdal galav es hakol. So we're saying like this, that even that if the guy is a low ogir and the house is a kaimala agra, even Tosfos will have to agree that that only when the loss is when the cheser is a grama cheser, but if by living in the house he also causes even the slightest depreciation in the house, even Tosfos will have to agree. In a guy who doesn't normally rent, he's a lo nene, he'll have to pay. Kal vachomer, when we have a zen nene, vizel lo chaser, where we say potter, that lo chaser has to be lo chaser mamish. But if there's even the slightest cheser, then he has to pay full rent. Where do we get that from? Hachimuchach b'Gemara, right? Because of the case of the two-story guy, the guy who built the bottom floor. The guy built the bottom floor and he lived there. And when he gets his expenses, there's a machlokas whether he has to pay rent or not. But the only reason he would have to pay rent, says the Gemara, is because it was a new house and he caused the walls to blacken. So therefore, you see from there that blackening the walls is called a cheser, and any halacha that applies because of a zel lo chaser, which may exempt the liver. The minute that there is a cheser even of blackening of the walls, then that's already a cheser that makes you chayiv the whole rent. V'zel loshen harosh zal. I'm back in the Beis Yosef. V'zel loshen harosh zal. From here on, it's all the rosh. Okay, the rosh is going to bring many opinions. V'zel loshen harosh, which we saw inside, but it's good to remember. Ilema b'chatzer de lo kaim la agra. V'zel lo nene v'zel lo chaser. Okay, so of course you're pater. Pirish Ri, Duhu Adin Nami B'Chatzer De Kaimala Agra V'Gavra De Lo Ovid LeMegar De Potter. This is the Tosfos. Kiva De Lo Nene Afal Gav De Garim Hefsid LeChavero. What's the parallel? What's the source to say such a thing? De Afilu Giresh Chavero Mi Beisov and Noal Adelas Befanov Ein Ze Elagrama Ba'alma. So what kind of a cheser did I have if I lived in your Airbnb? I lived in your Airbnb, which you normally rent. It's a kaimala agra, but I normally don't rent. I would never rent. I have lots of options. But I slept in your Airbnb. So what's the worst you could say is that I prevented somebody from coming in. But guess what? If I would have locked the door, says the Ri, and actively not let anybody in, I would have been pater. So therefore, you can't make me chayev because I lived there as long as I was a lo nene. Kiven de lo nene, afagav de gorem hefsid lechavero. The afilu girish chavero mi beisov and noal hadelis befanav. Ein ze ela grama be'alma v'lo mechayev ela kishas agzela. What Tosfos means there, kishas agzela. What the Ri means, b'shas agzela, means that a gazlan just has to return what he took. So even if I would be called a gazlan when I locked you out of your house, the minute I unlocked the house, I gave back what I had, and therefore you don't make me. If I stole your car, and then I kept it for a week, right, in my garage, and then I give it back to you, we don't say, well, I deprived you of the use for a week because as a gazlan, I'm not chayav for that. So therefore he says that the guy who lived in the house and therefore nobody else moved in, he's got to be pater because he's no worse than a guy who locked the house up, where he certainly doesn't have to pay any damage because it's pure grama. Obviously, he's going to be chayiv in dinei shamayim, just like any other grama. So that is the Ri. Hold your questions till we just finish, okay? Rav Alphas Kosav, this is still the Rosh quoting the Rif. B'chatzer de kaimala agra tzarch la'alot lo schar. Even if you are an Eino You don't normally rent, and therefore you're a lo nene. The Rif holds that you have to pay schar against the Tosfos. Afagav the law of the maker. Why the chasrei mamona uchedevarav muchach b'shmaitin? Okay, he's saying there is a cheser mamon because it's a kaimela agra. I lived there, and that's called cheser mamon. We'll have to deal in a minute. We'll deal. Why isn't that a grama? All right. And where do we see that in the Gemara? Shalchuhu b'meirav v'chima asazeh ma chesro ma hiziko. That's in a low kaimela agra. In a low kaimela agra, he said, and I'm sorry, there's a low nene and a low chaser. Low kaimela agra ma asazeh ma chesro ma hiziko. When it's a low kaimela agra, mashma. From that I can make a diuk. The argument was ma chasro. I ha chasro v'ziko pshita dechayev. And therefore, that's called cheser and hezek. If I moved into your house and because of that, nobody rented, you couldn't rent your Airbnb. Umiu kvar hochachti shalachisoran eno chayev to lo havi elagrama ba'alma v'chi ika lechiyuva mehai taima ika lechiyuva mishum. But it's a real grama. How do you get around the grama problem? All right, how do you get around the grama problem? So here is right the Rif saying. Here's how you get out. Here's how you get out around the grama problem. Mishum she'achal chisrono shel zeh v'lo dami l'no'es beiso shel chavero. When I lock your house and I don't let anybody in, what do I have of yours? I have nothing of yours. But when I lived in the house, and because of that people didn't come, so the cheser that I caused, big rama, I imbibed some kind of I imbibed that cheser to me. I took the cheser to me. Even though that's not called a nene, but I was ochal. I was ochal your cheser without a hana. V'lo dar, right? Let me go back again. Mishum she'achal chesrono shel zeh. V'lo dami l'noa beiso shel chavero v'lo darbo. Shelo bo liyodo klum me'achisoron chavero. Aval zeh, afal gav, here the key line. Afal gav shelo nene, shaya motze dira acheres bechinam, mikol makom hashta mia ha'achal ma shechavero nifsad. At the end of the day, the hefsed of the friend was consumed by the guy living there. So it's a consumption without a hana. Okay, now that somebody had a question, or we're okay?
I was just interested, is there a svara that would sit well for us of why, I guess, Chazal decided that grandma shouldn't be chayev in general? Like, it seems so unobvious that to me that if I lock your house and prevent you from earning your salary for 3 days until you bring a locksmith, that I'm not chayev. Dinei Adam.
Because I didn't take anything away from you. And I didn't do anything directly to you. Again, it goes back, I mentioned this before, it's a bit of a chiddush, but I hold that I have some sources for it, is that to be mechayev a mazik, to pay, I broke your window. I threw a rock through your window. I need a pasuk in the Torah to tell me I'm chayev. Because I didn't take anything away from you. When I stole your watch, so I don't need a pasuk to tell me I have to give you back your watch. I'm not allowed to have your money that I took away illegitimately. Just like there's no pasuk in the Torah to say I have to pay you back $100 that I borrowed. So if I took your watch and I'm holding your watch, so of course I'm not allowed to keep it for free. But if I broke your window, what do I have of yours? I'm a bad guy, and you have to now go and spend $100, but I don't have anything. So therefore, you need a pasuk in the Torah to tell me that I'm chayev b'mazik. So therefore, you can't go further than what the Torah says. The Torah says, if I'm mazik you, I have to pay. But if I didn't mazik you, if I didn't do something directly to you, I don't have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
It's
pater b'dinei adam v'chayev b'dinei shamayim. Don't be mezalzel. Don't take lightly the chiyuv b'dinei shamayim. Okay, but
right, just as a
it's not judiciable in court.
Right, just as a disincentive to, bad people, right? Maybe everyone in this class is careful about dinei shamayim also, but right, that your bad neighbor who prevents you from earning your income. It's just funny that they didn't litaken
It's not judiciable. Did you violate Asisa Yosher V'Hatov big time? You violated big time. Okay. Do they want to do business with you? Do they want to talk to you? Do they want to make a shidduch with your kid? They don't want to have any. But we're dealing here what's judiciable in court.
Mhm.
Okay. And by the way, Chayv Din and Shemayim is a serious business also. Don't think it's not a.
No,
it's not a serious business.
Please, Ilzul. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Beseder. All right.
Rabbi Karlinsky?
Yes.
Yeah, just one thing. I learned the sugi of Grama Garmi at the Halacha a few years ago. I'm not sure if the Chabura did it, but there's a massive shach and Ramban on the sugya about Garmi. One holds that the Garmi is the Raisa, the other one holds the Rabbanan. But even according to one shita, even a Garmi, which is Chayev, is not a Takana Rabbanan. It's not legislative.
If you hold if you hold it's the right.
Right. If you hold it's the Rabbanan, then you have to make the Chilukim, but they're very, very specific, and it really becomes a knas, but then not a general concept that indirect damage should be Chayev.
I'm not sure. So what are you saying? I mean,
no, I'm just saying the question. The question is, why did Chazal not legislate it? I'm just saying back to that question. It seems like there was never
in Grama.
No, Garmi was a specific knas according to the one who said it was the Rabbanan. But even there, the concept of a general indirect damage, there never seemed to be a desire by Chazal to legislate it at all.
I think I hear what you're asking. I mean, I don't think we did. I don't know if we did the sugi of Grama and Garmi, since it's such a massive sugi. I mean, the Ramban wrote a whole treatise on it. But I think you're starting from the wrong place. Grama ben Ezekin Potter, Garmi. The classic example of Garmi is Soreif Shtarosov Shel Chaver, that I actually had to physically burn up your IOUs. So because I physically did something to your property, I can now talk about maybe you have to pay, and it probably indirectly interfaces with the sugya of Davar HaGorem L'Mamun K'Mamun Dami or not, because that's also a machlokas. Maybe Dan, you're going to also be uncomfortable with that. Davar HaGorem L'Mamun. Okay, the classic example that I love to use in Davar HaGorem L'Mamun it's good. We're right now between Purim and Pesach. Perfect example. Okay, so somebody before Purim stole a case of your Johnny Walker. Okay, he stole 6 bottles of Johnny Walker, $50 a bottle. Okay, and he ended up only drinking 3 of them. So he certainly owes you $150 for the 3 bottles. Now he's got 3 bottles left. We have a din of Heshivis Agzela. He cannot say, you know what? I want to keep this Johnny Walker for the rest. I'll finish it before Pesach. Take another $150. What I drank, I have to pay $150. What's intact, Heshivis Agzela tells me I have to give it back to you. I can't say I want to keep it and give you $150. So far, so good?
Yes.
That's Heshivis Agzela. Okay. So now, but Heshivis Agzela has because it doesn't let me keep it, it makes me give it back. There's a caveat to that, and it's called Harei Shalcha Lefanecha. Since I have to give it back, it shows that you have a connection to it. I didn't really completely take it away from you. So since I have a chiyuv to give it back, if I give it back intact, I'm yotzei my chiyuv. And therefore, the depreciation in the event that I stole your iPhone the day after it came out, all right, and it cost $1,500, and I stole it in the box. You were on your way home. I punched you in the nose. I took your iPhone. I ran away with it. And now I've got it sitting in the box. And I let it sit in my drawer for a year. And now I get caught and I have to give it back. And it's intact. What do I have to do?
So you did it. You returned it. That's all you have to do.
Even though now it's worth $300.
Right. But by this logic.
But what happens if on the way to returning it to you, I slipped and it fell in the river and it's unrecoverable?
And then if it's $1,500 or $300, you have to pay.
$1,500. Good, you got it. Okay, so now I've got your 3 bottles of Johnny Walker that I have to give back, but I kept it until Erev Pesach, after the time of Isser Chametz. So now, how much is those 3 bottles worth?
Nothing.
It's Asr Bahana. I didn't sell it. Listen, if I'm an avariant to steal, I might be an avariant to keep chametz on Pesach also. Okay? So the value of those 3 bottles is 0. I come knocking on your door, and I say, "Oh, I have a chiyuv heshivas agzela. Time to do tshuva. Here are your 3 bottles of Johnny Walker back." Have I discharged my liability?
Sounds like the river, like the iPhone in the river.
Oh no, I'm returning exactly what I stole.
Doesn't seem like
So it
No,
counts.
It's the iPhone. No, it's the iPhone that was sitting in the drawer for a year.
Right. You returned it.
It depreciated from 1,500 to 300. This depreciated from 150 to 0. But it's the
That's
object.
not a depreciation.
The novel Birshus
That's not a
HaTorah.
Wait, when did he return it? Erev Pesach?
Yeah,
or
it's a
after
novel
Pesach?
versus a Torah. Yeah.
You know what? I returned it
Yeah.
after Pesach. Chametz she'over alav Pesach.
No, now it's an object that has an isser. It's not just depreciated; it has an isser.
Okay, that means it's usher b'hana'ah. That means it's worth 0.
No, he's
But
fulfilled his obligation. He's a novel versus a Torah. Like
Novel Birshus HaTorah.
It's the object, Daniel. We're not in Musar right now. Right now we're in Choshen Mishnah.
Well, he returned it. He was Mekayim Beheshiv as a Gazela.
He did exactly which was his chiyuv. The fact that he couldn't give you money, he had to return it intact. I say that creates with it the ability to return it even when it depreciated, as long as it's intact.
So I steal a bunch of bananas and I return a festering.
Oh no, that's not deterioration. That's not the same. That's not the same object. That's not. It didn't deteriorate in value. Okay, it deteriorated in object. Again, if you stole, there's a difference between stealing an iPhone and letting it depreciate in value where the object is identical.
My problem isn't with the iPhone; it's with the liquor.
No, but it's identical. It just lost its value.
Okay.
All of this is the introduction to what Dan may be, what we're going to connect to Groma and Garmi. So I'm walking up the steps to return it to you. Okay. And Daniel, who's novel B'Shus HaTorah, that Karlinsky, he is such a slime ball. And he takes a baseball bat and he smashes the bottles. So what is he? He's a mazik, correct? Would everybody agree that he's a mazik? Daniel, were you a mazik if he did that?
And he's actually actually, I destroyed my own stuff.
No. I stole Dan's whiskey, not yours. I stole Dan's whiskey, but you're a vigilante. And you
I have a kanai.
trying to pawn off 0 value to Dan, who we stole $150 from. So you go up and you break the bottles. So now what do I have to do? Now what do I owe Dan?
Nothing.
Full
I
price.
owe Dan nothing. I didn't return the whiskey yet.
Oh, you didn't return again. Oh.
So how much do I owe Dan?
the full value. That's like the phone fell in the river.
Just like if I was walking up the steps and it slipped and fell and broke.
Nice.
Right? I would have to now reach into my pocket and pay $150. You broke the bottles. I got to pay $150.
Wait, but the whiskey's worthless at this point. It's already Easter comments. So don't you only have to pay the value of the bottles.
When I stole, if I returned the bottles intact, I have fulfilled the Heshivis Agzela. Excuse me, don't you remember? If the iPhone, I kept the iPhone in my drawer for a year and a half, and it went from $1,500 to $300. Right. If the iPhone is intact, I hand it to him and say, have a good day. If something happened to the iPhone, I have to write out a check for $1,500. Even though when I do it, it's only worth $300. Because I stole $1,500. It's a unique aspect of Gezela that I have the power to say Vehesheves Hagzela, but it works for me and against me. It works against me that I can't keep it. I have to return it if it's intact, and I can't say here's $150. But it works because in the event that it depreciates from 100, let's go. You guys don't like the fact that it went from 0. How about if there was a big glut on the market, and when I come to return it, 3 bottles of Johnny Walker cost like Coca-Cola? All right, each bottle is worth $5. Can I say Harei Shalcha Lefanecha? Absolutely. But we haven't gotten to the point I want to get to. So Daniel,
the mazik only owes the $5.
That's what I'm going to get to. The vigilante. Daniel comes and he smashes the bottles. Well, he was mazik me how much? How much was the value of what he was mazik?
Present day price.
Which was?
$5 a bottle.
Well, let's make it. I want to make it 0. I want to make it on Erev Pesach. 0.
Oh.
So he broke bottles that had a market value of 0.
Right.
So therefore, how much does Daniel owe me?
Nothing.
Unless, and here we get into a machlokus about something called davar hagorem lemamon. Whether davar hagorem lemamon is kimamon, okay, or it's a pure grama. Dan, you understand understand the issue here? He made me reach into my pocket and write out a $150 check. But what he damaged was 0. But he was gore me to write out a $150 check. And he did it with direct damage. So that's the question. Is it called grama? Or no, he damaged something physical and he pays for what he damaged. And that's a machlokas tanoim. All right, whether davar hagorim lamamon kemamon or it's a regular grama.
How does that work with the chametz? I could hear that with the phone, but with the chametz, it becomes totally valueless and usher to be used.
Wait, you just said 2 different things.
Okay.
Usher to be used affects value.
Right.
So if I return the object intact, the fact that you can't use it is your problem. I did what I have to do. I did Heshavas.
I'm talking about the guy who broke the bottles.
Well, if you hold the davar hagorem lemamon is lav kemamon, then the guy doesn't pay anything because he broke something worthless.
I'm trying to understand if it is yes kemamon. That I don't see that sound.
So that's not a specific case here. That's a general thing. That
Yeah,
is
the
real source. Again, I don't want. It's a complicated sugya, but it basically says that if I stole something that caused you to write out a check, then one opinion says it's as if I stole the money itself. Davar hagorim lamamon kimamon, meaning it's worse than grama. You guys wanted Dan wants grama to be chayiv. Dan doesn't understand why grama isn't chayiv. Okay, so grama, if it's real grama, he's not chayiv. But the question is whether gorem lamamon is like a real grama, or it's worse than grama.
I hear all that. I just don't see that in the case of the chametz of the whiskey before Pesach. I don't see how that is mammon in any way.
You are allowing your religious sensitivities to get in the way of the financial realities.
But the financial reality is that this thing is worthless. I can't sell it to a goy. I can't sell it to a Jew. Nothing.
Therefore, wait.
I can't use it to clean my windows.
And therefore, what would you like to be?
It's not mammon. It's nothing.
Oh, I beg your pardon. When you broke those bottles, now I have to reach into my pocket and write out a $150 check because you broke my bottles that to me had a value of $150 because I was able to exonerate a debt of $150 with these bottles.
Basically,
Could I use these bottles to eliminate a $150 debt that I have?
which was basically you gave back $150, which were worth nothing, right?
No, I didn't give. No.
Well, to the receiver, to the guy that you stole it from, he can't do anything with your $150 bottles, right?
Just like when I gave him a $300 iPhone, it's basically to him worthless. He's got to go and spend $1,200 to get a new one. Again, you've got to talk about the fact that there's a special din called Heshavas Agzel. Let's not get too sidetracked. Let's get back into the Beis Yosef. Okay, so now let's go back into the tour. Okay, because we want to now see the tour. Turn the page and go to Zion. Okay, let's just read. Let's read the rest of the tour just so we keep the flow. Okay, Pirish Reed. I'm still back in the tour in the Vav. Pirish Reed Shim Imadarbo lo hayatzach liskor v'inyan she'eno nene potter afilu im achatzer omed lasker. That's zen nene v'zel lo chaser. Okay, I'm sorry. That's zelo nehene. She'im in darbo lo hayatzarch liskor beinyan she'eno nene. He's an eno nene. Even if the house was an omed lahaskir, pater afilu im achatzer omed lahaskir. That's the read. That's Tosfos. Again, remember Tosfos holds that if that if I have no ano, I don't have to pay. The Rav Alphas Kosav no. Im omer achotzer lahaskir tzarich litin lo schar afilu im dar shelo afilu im hadar lo haya tzarich litzkor. Ulezeh hiskim Adoni Avi Harosh Zal. The Rosh Pasuk is like the Rif against Tosfos. You gotta pay. V'hama hosif lomar di afilu lo haya darbo kivan she'omed lahaskir v'gozlo mimenu chayiv. Meaning, even if Shimon is not living there, right, and he might not have planned on renting it, and he right, then he doesn't have to pay. Okay, that lo hayadarbo kivin she'omed lahaskir the gozlo mimenu chayiv. That's locking him out of the house. But the Rosh holds that if he locked him out of the house, he's potter. He's only going to be chayiv if he actually lived in the house. Now, here's the new halacha Zayin. Okay, im ein achotzer omed lahaskir. All right, so it's not rentable. It's not an Airbnb. It's your private house. You don't rent. Ein tzorich latet lo klum, because even if I'm nene, that's the psak. All right, that if I normally rent and I'm a nene, but the house is lo omed lahaskir, you're not chosser. I don't have to pay. Afilu hoyo zeh hadarbo tzorich liskor. Meaning, I would have had to rent if I didn't live in your house. Kivin shelo chosro klum, I am a nene because I would have had to rent if I didn't live in your house, but you're a lo chosro. Lefikach, since the only reason that I am potter is because even though I was a nene, you're a lo choser. Therefore, lefikach, what comes out of that? Im chosro afilu davar muat. Kigon shahoya habayit chadash v'zeh chosro b'ma de b'ma sheishchiro tzorich l'shalin lo kama de'ishani mineh. Again, we're going to go back to the case of the two-story building. That if Reuven is a nene and Shimon is a lo chaser, the din is you don't have to pay. But the minute there was even the little bit of cheser in the house, so this is a chiddush, is you don't have to just make up the cheser. Now, as I would have liked to say, your default would have been, wait a minute, I'm a nene, you're a lo chaser. Oh, I was a chaser, you $5? Fine, I'll give you $5 and turn it back into a zen nene v'zeh lo chaser. We say no. Once there's a $5 cheser, then you don't have the din of zen nene v'zeh lo chaser, and Reuven has to pay full rent, full hana'ah. He has to pay full hana'ah, because you can't talk about how much rent there is, because it's not only to be rented. But whatever Reuven saved, he has to pay that now to Shimon. Okay? All right. So let's now see the Beis Yosef on that. Okay, so go to the Beis Yosef, and we're going to pick it up with Umasha Omar. Okay, Umasha Omar. It's basically, if you're in the new tour, it's at the very top of Kufayin Vav. Okay? It starts Umasha Omar Mein Chatzar Omi Lahaskir. Ein Tzarech Litet Lo Klum. Afilu Shahaya Zeh Darbo Tzarech Liskor. Kivan Shelo Chatzro Klum. Kvar Nisbayr B'Samach, because that's a Darbo Chatzar Chavero. I'm sorry, that's a Zen Nene V'Zeh Lo Chatzar. Umasha Kosav Lefikach. Im Chatzro Afilu Davar Muat. Kigon Shahaya Abayit Chadas Zeh Chatzro V'Mashi Shiro. Tzarech L'Sham Lo Kol Madei Sane. Where do we get that from? Where do we get the fact that if he causes a little cheser, he's got to pay the whole rent? Tamo mishum de begemara ahadam esafkelam bedar b'chatzer chaver shalom idaito v'hu chatzer delo kaima la'agra the gavra David lemegar. And the whole discussion in the Gemara was, what do we do with a guy who has to rent, but the house is not omed the house is not omed to be rented, lo chaser. We tried to bring a raya from the following Mishnah. Right? This is our two-story house. Let's remind ourselves how this proves that even the slightest damage already neutralizes the whole din of zen and of v'zeh chaser. Habayit v'aliyah shel shnayim shenaflu, that the house, everything fell down. Amar balabayit balaliyah lebalabayit livnot, in order that I should be able to build my upstairs. The guy who on the bottom says, Eino Rotze, Hare Bala Aliyah Bones Abayis. So the bottom guy, the top guy can build the bottom so that he'll be able to build his top. But he didn't yet build his top. He only built the bottom. The Yoshev betocho, and he's allowed to stay in the bottom, because the bottom guy owes him expenses. All right? And he doesn't have to pay any rent, meaning we don't deduct any rent. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and Rabbi Yehuda argues and says you got to pay. So l'chayra, you see that Rabbi Yehuda holds that you got to pay. Says the Gemara, no, Mashani shiny hasim. You know why Rabbi Yehuda holds you have to pay? Mishum shachurisa dash yasa, because it's a brand new house, and for a brand new house, he caused the walls that when Ruvain, who had the bottom, when Ruvain is a builder, when Shimon, who had the bottom, pays the expenses to Ruvain and moves back into his house, Shimon is not moving into the house that Ruvain built. He's moving into a house that's worth a little less. Because when Shimon lived there, when Ruvain lived there, he caused the walls to get black. And therefore, that's already called a little bit of a cheser to Shimon, and therefore Ruvain has to pay rent, according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to the Chachamim, no. Because of our Rashba, Shabinyan zeh chadash v'lavan v'zeh mashchiro. That's the reason why he's going to have to pay rent. Umikan shamanu sha'af al pi she'ein hefseid oso shacharisa elameat. So here, what do we see? That blackening of the walls, it's a minor depreciation. It's a minor loss. Al yodo megalgalin alav al kol aschar kefi mashenene. You see from that little loss, that already neutralizes the zenene v'zelo chaser, and you got to pay everything. The chen nami shaminan. I'm sorry, we're going to skip this because this was another Gemara we didn't do, had to do with Yisomim, which proves the same point, is that if there's a little bit of a loss, you have to pay the whole rent. Okay? So skip down now to the third line from the bottom, V'kivan, Shehem Chaser, and this is the summary of that other case of the Yisomim, which we skipped. Kivan Shehem Chaser and Afilu Davar Muat Machayven also Litain Schar Mishkan. Okay? And therefore you got to pay everything. Skip another line. Okay, that everybody agrees on that case because of from the Yisomim case. Okay, now let's go to Ches. Let's do Ches. Go back into the tour. This is now a very big chiddush, but it becomes obvious. But we can certainly argue about it. V'davka shelo gila hadar b'daito shaya rotze ritzono litein lo schar. Remember, we're here in a case where zenene, I normally would rent, and you don't rent your house, and I'm moving in, and I'm not paying rent, and I'm saving the rent, but it's not costing you anything. So what's the din? What's the din that we have? How do we paskin? If there's lo cheser at all, because it's not a rentable house, what's the din? Come on, guys.
Butter.
Ruvain does Ruvain have to pay anything? No, it doesn't have to pay anything.
No.
Even though he would have had to rent because he has no other place to live. He would have had to rent, but you know what? He found this empty house and he moved in. He has to have done it without indicating that he was ready to pay Shimon rent. That he said, if you don't let me live, I'm not living here. I'll go sleep on the park bench. Okay? Aval in gila bedaito shim lo henicho ladurbo bechina haya nosen lo schar kodem shahaya yotze mimenu. What happens if Ruvain moved in and Shimon says, you know what? I want you out. And then Ruvain says, oh, so you want me out? So from now on, I'll pay rent. So he indicated that the only reason, I'm sorry, you want me out, I'm leaving. I'm sorry, I got it backwards. You want me out, I'm leaving. So he just indicated that the only reason he moved in, because it was free. But what happens if he indicated that I moved in because it's free, but you know what, if I have to pay, I'll stay. I'm sorry, so there I was right. That Shimon comes home, says, what are you doing in the house? Get out. And Reuven says, oh, no, don't kick me out. Shimon says, you want to stay? You got to pay me $100 a night. And Shimon says, oh, if I have to pay you $100 a night, I'll pay you $100 a night. So now we understand that he didn't just move in because it's free. He was ready to pay, but there was nobody there to ask him for money, so he didn't have to pay. I follow the case again. Dafka shelo gila hadar bedaita. When do I say that Reuven doesn't have to pay when he lives there, even though Shimon was that it's because Shimon's a lo chaser, even though Reuven's a nene, and I say Reuven doesn't have to pay, is kishelo gila bedait hadar bedaito shaya ritzono liten lo schar im lo inicho ladurbo. All right, I never indicated that I'm ready to pay rent if you don't let me live here. Avalim gila bedaito. But if somehow or other we could figure out that Reuven was ready to pay rent if he would have had to, she'im lo inicho ladurbo b'china mayanoten lo schar kodem shaya yotze mimenu tzorech liten lo scharo, then he's going to have to pay. In other words, if I have an indication that Reuven's there for free, but if he has to pay, he'll pay, then even though the other guy's a lo chaser, since Reuven is a nana and he indicated he would have been ready to pay rent, he's going to have to pay rent. Where in the world did that come from? Where did that distinction come from? Right? That it depends whether Reuven indicated that he's ready to pay rent. Understand? Reuven, at the end of the day, Reuven was dar b'chatzer chavero, and he was a nene, and the other guy was lo chaser. Why should he have to pay rent under any circumstances? Says the Beis Yosef. Where did that come from? Umash Amar dafka shelo gila bedaito shaya ritzono liten lo schar, etc. Aval im gila bedaito shim lo yinicha ladurbo b'china mayanos lo schar. I read that fast because that's the Beis Yosef. Says the Beis. Now I'll slow down. Where did that come from? Ahad maisi hasam b'Gemara. You know where that came from? It came from the desire of the Gemara to prove zen nene v'zel lo chaser. What's the din? Where did we want to prove it from? We wanted to prove it from Hamakif es chavero me'arba ruchosav. Remember that complicated Gemara. So remember the picture. If Reuven surrounds Shimon on all four sides, so Rabbi Yossi said, remember when he surrounded him on three sides, the inside guy Shimon doesn't pay anything. He's a lo nene. What happens if he got surrounded on four sides? So now Shimon is a nene, but we call Reuven a lo chaser because he had to do it anyway. Rabbi Shimon Omer, im omad v'godar es haravis, migalgalano es hakol. That if Shimon the Nikaf built the fourth wall, he has to pay for all four walls. Taima de Godar Nikaf. That's because Shimon built the fourth wall. Hamakif patur. But if the makif would have built the fourth wall, so even Rabbi Yossi would agree that it's a zen and a v'zelo chaser. But if Shimon indicated that he's happy and he's ready to pay money, how did he indicate that he's ready to pay money? Because he built the fourth wall. So you see, he's ready to pay money for the hana'ah that he got. Okay, but he really only got hana'ah. Well, he built the fourth wall, and he didn't really get hana'ah from the other three walls. Remember what happened here. If Reuven builds four walls, so Shimon's getting hana'ah, and he doesn't have to pay because it's a zen and a lo chaser. So, but Reuven didn't build the fourth wall. Shimon built the fourth wall. So before he built the fourth wall, he had no hana'ah. Now that he built the fourth wall, we're making him pay for everything. Why? Because Tosvos, im tomer ezenene v'izenene v'zelo chaser pater. If you assume, and that's what the Gemara is assuming, that a zenene v'zelo chaser is pater, so afilu amad nikaf nami. The nikaf was a nene, and it didn't cost Reuven anything. Follow. Reuven built three walls. Okay, so he built them. He built them for himself. Shimon now stands up and builds a fourth wall. So what cheser did Reuven have because Shimon built a fourth wall? What cheser did Reuven have because Shimon built a fourth wall?
Nothing at all.
What hana'ah did Shimon have from Reuven's first 3 walls.
Now he has a fenced-in area.
So he has a lot of hana'ah from the first 3 walls. Before he built the 4th wall, he had no hana'ah from the 3 walls. Now that he built the 4th wall, he has hana'ah from the first 3 walls.
But because he's showing that he has...
Wait. But what did that cost? What cheser did Reuven have from the walls that Shimon is now having hana'ah from? You guys follow this. Again, let's get, this is so compelling if you follow it straight. So again, Reuven builds 3 walls. Shimon has no hana'ah. Now Reuven builds the 4th wall. Now Shimon has hana'ah.
Yep.
Was Reuven did the hana'ah that Shimon have cost Reuven anything?
He would have built it anyway.
Had to build his walls anyway. So that's called zenen v'zelo chaser. That's the diuk from Rabbi Yossi. The only reason we're making the Shimon pay is because he built the 4th wall. But if he would not have built the 4th wall, if Reuven would have built all 4 walls, it would have been a classic case of zenen v'zelo chaser. That's what it says in the Gemara. It says Tosfos, wait a minute. When Shimon built the 4th wall, did that cost Reuven anything? Did Reuven have any extra expenses because Shimon built the 4th wall?
No, Shimon's expenses.
Definitely not. So Shimon is having hana'ah, because now he closed everything off, from those 3 walls, because he only had to close 1 wall, so he's having hana'ah from the other 3 walls, with no expense to Reuven. So how come Megalgalin olav esakol? Rabbi Yossi says that if Shimon builds the 4th wall, he's got to participate in all 4 walls. Well, all 3 walls, because he paid for the 4th wall. He's got to now pay for the expenses of the other 3 walls. Says Tosfos, wait a minute. It's a zenene. Shimon's having hana'ah from those 3 walls, but those 3 walls didn't cost Reuven anything because he had already built them. So why? Because Shimon built the 4th wall, why am I making him pay for all the walls? That's Tosfos' kasha. I hope you guys feel that that's a great kasha.
So the comparison is to this halacha where the guy came into the guy's house.
Wait, don't compare it to anything. Don't compare it to anything yet. Don't compare anything. Understand the case of the walls, and understand Tosfos' kasha. Ephraim, it looks like you want to say something.
The kasha is magnified if the story included the fact that he built the 4th wall 20 years later, right?
Oh, of course we're talking when he built the wall. A week later, a month later, or a year later.
No, I'm saying a week or a month or 2 later, he's indicating that he's appreciating the 3 walls that were put up. But 20 years later, this is all ancient history, and now he has to go back and pay for his share of the 3 walls.
Wait a minute. I hear your question, but I want to say that doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't matter.
Oh.
I'm just saying that it emphasizes the point.
Okay. So let's keep it simple, where it's more compelling that he's having hana'ah. Okay, he's having hana'ah because a week later he built the 4th wall, so he's having hana'ah. Okay, but Reuven didn't lose anything, and yet we see the halacha is that he has to pay for all the walls. Okay. Just call. I'm sorry, I'm in my Chabura. Can I call you back in a little while? Okay. So it was my wife. Otherwise, I never would have answered it. Okay. So Tosfos' kasha is a bam kasha. Says Tosfos. Im tomer if you hold zenene v'zelo chaser potter afilu omad nikaf nami. The yesh lomar the shiny omad nikaf. De golia daite de nichale behotsa'a. The lodome ledar bechatzer chaverosh. The logoli daite ela bechina. There's the yesod. We say zenene v'zel lo chaser pater when you had hana'ah and he didn't have chesaron, but there's no indication that you would have paid, so we don't make you pay. But the minute you indicate that you would have paid for the hana'ah that you got, you would have paid for it, even if you had no cheser, then you have to pay. That comes out. That's what comes out from the fact that since Shimon indicated hana'ah from the first 3 walls, even though Reuven had no chisaron, and zenene v'zelo chaser is pater, But if you indicated that you would have paid, and what's the proof you would have paid? Because you paid for the fourth wall. So therefore you have to pay for all the walls. Therefore, now go back to our case in the Shulchan Aruch, in the tour. The dafka shelo gila dar bedaito shaya ritzono litin lo scharin lo inicha ladur babachina. Aval in gila bedaito shim lo inicha ladur babachina. Hayanosin lo schar kodem shaya yotzim imenu. Then sarich litin lo scharo. Got to pay the rent, and that's where we got it. And we got it from that Tosfos. Okay, this ain't perfect timing. Next time we will see the Shulchan Aruch on this. There's some very important things, and it's going to touch explicitly why we don't say Kofin al Midas Dom, and it's going to open the door for when we apply it. And then the next springboard is going to be, we'll have enough time, I think, to see a Gemara in Bava Metzia, a very famous Gemara. I think we may have once seen it, about a guy who rents a boat to transport wine, and the boat sinks. Who owes whom what? Okay, and we'll see that relates to a Zen, and it also relates to a Kofin al Midas Dom case. We'll see that.